Story here involving two strikers and two clubs, but we do expect Liverpool to rival Newcastle United in their attempts to sign Hugo Ekitike from Eintracht Frankfurt. That is after this morning Liverpool were told by Newcastle United that Alexander Isak is not for sale this transfer window. Now, we know that Liverpool, Arsenal as well, have a long-standing interest in Isak, and who would not. 62 goals over his 3-year spell here at St James's Park. Liverpool very much like the striker, but they've been told that he is not for sale, and Newcastle value Isak at upwards of £150 million. So they are desperate to hold on to him this window. He's got 3 years left in his contract. Newcastle are in a very strong position. As a result of that, we can tell you that Liverpool will rival Newcastle now in Newcastle's attempts to sign Ekitike from Eintracht Frankfurt. I told you earlier on this morning that Newcastle had a £70 million bid turned down by Frankfurt for the French forward. That would represent a club record for Newcastle, £70 million. Ironically, the club record is held by Alexander Isak, who signed here at St James's Park 3 years ago for £63 million. So expect Liverpool now to come to the table in the race for Hugo Ekitike. And we said earlier that Frankfurt felt that there were a couple of clubs at the table, not just Newcastle. They felt that there was one or two clubs willing to spend more than the £70 million that Newcastle had offered and seen turned down. So look, a very delicate situation, quite a convoluted transfer. Liverpool would like either of the two strikers. They don't have either of them. Newcastle would like both, and they've only currently got one. Let's see what happens, but a very interesting story, and I'm sure this is not the last we have heard of this one. Newcastle have their £70 million approach for Hugo Ekitike turned down, and Liverpool have now been told that Alexander Isak is not for sale, and they will rival Newcastle United in an attempt to bring Hugo Ekitike to the English Premier League.
Keith, it's absolutely fascinating, this one, and all I'm reading online is that Newcastle fans want the pair of them to be playing alongside one another at Newcastle. How realistic do you think that is for these Newcastle fans?
I would say it's certainly less realistic now with the news that Liverpool are at the table and trying to sign Ekitike. Look, Newcastle would love to have them both, and I think you speak to any Newcastle United supporter and they would say only Newcastle United could, at one stage yesterday, have potentially both of the strikers and then 24 hours later have neither of them. But that isn't the case. I fully expect Alexander Isak to remain at St James's Park this summer, and Newcastle will dig their heels in and resist any kind of approach for Liverpool. From Liverpool. He's got 3 years left in his contract. I do feel, though, that their attempts to bring in Ekitike is going to be a lot more difficult now that they know Liverpool are interested and that Liverpool are set to rival them. Of course, Liverpool have got money to spend. They need a new striker. Of course they do. And I think Isak would have been their number one choice, but I think Isak is Newcastle's number one choice as well. So they will keep him here, as I have said, and Liverpool will now attempt to try and bring Ekitike to Anfield. Newcastle will hope that they've still got an opportunity, but I think that's going to be pretty difficult when Liverpool